Pleasure to meet you.
Hello.
With Inception, what were some of the challenges faced with shooting so many effect shots in camera?
Well, it creates a lot of logistical challenges. It creates a lot of demand on the special effects crew, the guys on set who have to figure out how to do these things. But I've worked with Chris Corbould and his team who've done all the Bond films for years, for a long time, and they can figure out how to, on The Dark Knight they flipped an 18-wheeler in the middle of the street. On Inception they figured out all these zero-gravity rigs and revolving sets and things, and they're just a very talented bunch of people who were looking for an opportunity to show what they can do in this era of everything's computer graphics and green screen and everything. It's fun to get a group of people together and make something happen in reality.
Well, it's turned out great every time.
Thank you.
Have you studied psychology in any way since so many of your films delve with the human mind?
Study psychology, only my own.
Okay. It's a pleasure to meet you, and congratulations on your accolades.
Thank you.
Chris Nolan.
Welcome, I should say welcome back to Santa Barbara. You were telling me that actually you've been in this theater, you've seen movies. What was the last movie you saw here at the Arlington?
The last time I was here was James Cameron's Aliens, the weekend ago. Long time ago.
That's cool. What brought you to Santa Barbara?
My uncle and aunt used to live here, and so I would spend summers here. I think the first time I came here I was 6 years old.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, I've got a great affection for the place. Spend a lot of time hanging around with friends at UCSB.
It's cool to see a theater like this, particularly for a lot of the kinds of films that you've made recently. You want to see them on a big screen in an environment like this, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was just thrilled to see that this place is still here and still functioning the way it should be. I wish there were more theaters like this all over the world.
What was you? Yeah, you can applaud the Arlington. What was your reaction to seeing your life pass before your eyes right there?
A little strange, yeah, especially when I sort of cut the things I keep repeating in films. It makes me connections that it's interesting to see somebody cut together bits from your films because you're seeing them make connections that you weren't consciously making when you made the different films.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you've, I mentioned it's 11, 12 years since you made Following, and the incredible success that you've had, and one just keeps getting bigger than the other. Does that put any undue pressure on you, or do you still feel like the same filmmaker who started, making movies when he was a little kid?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, for me the process has really kind of stayed the same. What I've tried to always do is just concentrate on what's going to be in the frame, what's going to be on screen. And that stops you thinking about seeing all of the trucks and the massive crew and how those things have changed, because they've changed in all kinds of extraordinary ways in the last 11 years. But really, my job boils down to thinking about what the shot is, what the next shot is going to be, what the shot was before that, and how that continuity, advances the story.
Now you're half English and half American. How does that work?
Quite well. No, my father was English and my mother's American. So I spent time in both places. But mostly England, although my brother's out here somewhere sounding very American if he's talking right now. He went to school more in America than I did. But no, our family's always been back and forth.
Did you always want to do this? I mean, you started making movies. Can you tell the story about how you actually started your first time with a film camera here?
Yeah, my dad had a Super 8 camera that he let me and my brother borrow, and we would make sort of films using Lego at first, and then after Star Wars came out, we started making science fiction epics, imaginatively, the type of Space Wars. And we'd use, you know, the different toys from the films and that kind of thing, do stop motion animation and all that. And I just sort of always did that and carried on doing it. And the films got sort of bigger and bigger.
So you actually worked in the Super 8 world. Do you ever see those films again? Do you remember them the way you made them? Or?
Well, I turned 40 recently, and my younger brother was kind enough to get some of those films together and put them, telecinema, put them on tape. And I showed them to my kids, a couple of them, and the peculiar thing for me is they weren't how I remembered them. And I was quite critical of them. I thought, you know, because I remember what I wanted them to be. It was the sort of most exaggerated version of, you know, looking back at a film you made a couple of years ago and seeing things you wished you'd done otherwise. But you tend to retain a memory of what the ambition was for the thing or what you felt it was at the time. And then when you look back at the cold, hard reality, it could be a bit disappointing.
When you said spectacle and the human drama, I can't think of a better description of what you've done with the whole Batman thing, bringing that back to life, because you went to the human drama of something that had been lost, I think, and found that.
Well, I think Batman, the reason I was interested in Batman is he's not a superhero with superpowers. He's an ordinary man who does a lot of push-ups. He has this, you know, an amazing amount of money, which is his superpower, but he's a relatable character, he's a relatable human being, and he's driven by these very cinematic things, the staples of, you know, film noir and crime thrillers, the kind of things that I love, the desire for revenge, and what that does to it. Liam's character, you know, Ra's al Ghul, Batman Begins, had a lot of fun with the way they would talk about revenge and the different ways you can pursue it. All the different things you could do with that rage, and you know, we're about to start, you know, making our last of these films and continuing to explore that idea, because I think he's a very fascinating character.
Oh, he's amazing. I heard a rumor you were doing another one of these films. We'll get to that. But did you go to Warner Brothers and say, I've got a way to bring Batman back that I'd like to try, or did they come to you, or how did this all come about, that Batman Begins?
Well, I mean, my agent Dan is somewhere out in the audience. Agent Dan, he called me and said that Warner Brothers didn't know what they knew they wanted to do something with Batman, but hadn't figured out what, because Darren Aronofsky had been developing Batman Year One for some time with them, and Darren had reached the point that he didn't want to pursue it because he wanted it to be an R-rated film, and you know, the studio felt they couldn't do that with that character, and so he let it go, and they were sort of going, okay, what do we do with this? And I had never really thought about Batman until that phone call that moment. I thought about it and thought, well, what no one's ever done is about an origin story. In the classical sense, not in the Year One sense, but in, you know, that particular graphic novel, but in the sense of like Dick Donner's version of Superman in 1978, where you take an epic character and you create an epic telling of that origin story. And so my goal with Batman Begins, what I went in and pitched the studio, was let's do for Batman what Richard Donner did for Superman in 1978. Because that film never got made for whatever reason. What really happened was when Tim Burton took on Batman, he did it in his very brilliant and idiosyncratic way, and he created this whole extraordinary world for Batman to exist in, where he's kind of not that surprising as a figure in a way, because the whole world is you know, the Atom First design and everything is sort of fascinatingly gothic and interesting. What hadn't been done was the origin story, where you try and create a fairly ordinary world, a fairly recognizable contemporary, you know, American story, and then you have Batman be this extraordinary figure in an ordinary world. That telling that hadn't been done, and that was really my pitch to the studio.
How did Christian Bale come into the picture? I mean, was that someone you envisioned in it, or?
Well, Christian, I liked his work a lot, particularly, you know, American Psycho. I'd seen and just thought he was mesmerizing and terrifying. But then when you see the film a second time, actually incredibly funny. It really is. It's a very satirical performance and very amusing. Once you're not afraid of the film anymore, you can actually enjoy that. And it's actually fascinating to see him in the fighter now, finally being recognised for how funny he can be, which is terrific. I'd seen him do that, and he was the first actor I met with for the part. And I had a great conversation with him. Met him at a restaurant, and he wasn't eating there, he was just sort of drinking this cup of coffee, and that was all he had. Wouldn't have any food, and I didn't notice, but Emma did, that he was incredibly thin. I mean, he looked fairly normal to me. But then when he got up and I walked behind him in the restaurant with his t-shirt on, you could see his ribs through the t-shirt. And he'd lost, I think, 80 pounds or something insane for a film called The Machinist, Brad Anderson was doing. And poor old Christian, he lost this weight, and then they pushed the film a month or something, and so he had to keep it going. And, I sort of came out of that meeting feeling like, this guy pretty much is Bruce Wayne. It's like this incredible sense of self-discipline, this incredible dedication to achieving something. And we did screen tests. We tested 5 different actors, including Christian. And my big fear about Christian was that he'd be a 90-pound Batman. and somehow, between wrapping The Machinist and our screen test, he managed to put on. I mean, he was a little, I don't think he might be saying this, he actually got a little chubby before he did the screen test. He really, I think the swing was fully 100 pounds or something. Yeah, it was really amazing. And then he built himself up into this character, but he gave it just an incredible screen test. One of the other actors who tested, who gave a great test, was Cillian Murphy. And he seemed a little improbable as Batman, but just gave this extraordinary test. And so when we came to cast the villain in the film, the studio was very happy for us to take this relatively unknown actor and put him in that role.
What's so great too, I mean, you have some incredible scenes in it, all those bats and things, but you don't CGI your movies to death. I mean, it's all in camera, so much of it that you go for.
We try to do as much as possible in camera, and even when there are going to be effects enhancements, we try to get as much as possible in the frame, because what the computer graphics guys are very, very good at doing is matching things or expanding on things. If you go with nothing, you're asking them to paint a picture, really, and then they're in a world of animation. And I think that the audience has an innate ability to distinguish between photography and animation, and I don't think that's ever going away. I think there is something different about the serendipity of something you photograph, whether it's full scale or into miniature. The difference between that and where somebody's just sitting down on a blank canvas and painting something, I think that feels very different to an audience.
Your first sequel was The Dark. I don't know that you had any intention after Batman Begins of going back to it again, or
not immediately. No, we made Batman Begins as a standalone film, and the reference to the Joker at the end of the card, and it was always just the right ending for that film, just the excitement of it could carry on in some way. And then really in the months after the film came out, I just became interested in seeing that character, saying, okay, what would the Joker be in our telling of Gotham and Batman and that world?
And Heath Ledger made an unforgettable Joker in this movie. Sat here at Santa Barbara with him a few years ago, and he's a great guy. And what a performance! What a movie! I mean, this just took it further. It was the other themes, more interesting themes. The other film ends, and then there's that whole thing of escalation and all the things that you can explore to take it forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had left ourselves with a pretty interesting jumping off point, and the Joker was always going to be the linchpin of that, and David Goyer and myself put together a story based on that, and then handed it over to Jonah to do the first draft. And the thing that he came back to me with was this incredible motor at the heart of the film, this dark engine that is the Joker. And what was fascinating in retrospect is that I cast Heath without him having read that script or without, you know, it was more our conversations about the idea, about the theory of the Joker. You know, we talked a lot about, you know, things like Clockwork Orange, you know, various different characterizations of things that the character might relate to as a force of anarchy, as a force of chaos. So it was all about ideas, really. And then when I got Jonah's script, I felt like we have the heart of the movie, we have this engine. And I watched the film again recently because of, you know, we're going into it now once and figuring out our relationship of the third film to the first two in technical terms. So we're looking at photography and things like that. But what I really felt was the second half of the film particularly becomes very much a white knuckle ride. And that was my original pitch to the studio on it. I said, this is not a bad guy. This is not a villain who has a plan, who wants money, or wants to do this, do that. Everything is about chaos and anarchy and screwing with people. I mean, that's all it is. And so the second half of the film is very much a white knuckle ride, just driven by the unpredictability of Heath. And what he figured out for that performance, without ever really talking about it, to me, is everything's unpredictable. And so when you see him move, when you see him walk, you just don't know what he's going to do next. And you would see him just in wardrobe fittings, you know, put on a pair of shoes or a coat and start to move and express himself. And it was all about surprise. It was all about unpredictability, this quirk. Everything he did was, you know, hard to pin down. And that comes, I think, very frightening. It's there in the voice as well. You never know whether he's going to be up here or down there, word to word. It's changing. And that keeps you on the back foot the whole time as an audience member. You just don't know where this guy's going to go, what he's going to do.
Now, before we get on to our last clip, I'm going to try to weasel some news out of you. So you're going to do Dark Knight Rises. Where'd you come up with that title?
A lot of banging my head against the wall.
Like he does
figuring out what it needed to be. No, we've been working on it a long time, actually. David Goyer and myself sat down and worked through the story a few years ago, and then Jonah took it over and wrote a draft of the script, and I've been writing on it since. And, yeah, we're about 12 weeks away from shooting. We'll start in May.
Got a release date, I think it's July 20th, 2012.
Yep.
Okay. Now, Anne Hathaway's been cast, and Tom Hardy from Inception.
Yeah.
He's Bane in this, and she is the Catwoman, we think.
Selena Khan.
Selena.
I think it's going to be fun.
But when they announce it, they don't say Catwoman. They say the actual name, so intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to you when Dark Knight came out, though, and you said, no, I think this is it. I think this is my last one. What was the turning point for you that you cracked the story? You just wanted to finish it, or?
I think really, it was about finishing the story. And for me, it's all about endings. You know, every film's about endings. It's about knowing where you want to go with the thing. If I can figure out, you know, where I want to go with the thing. And I think in the case of Batman, we've known for a long time the story is we're telling the Bruce Wayne's story. And so that's what gets me excited about getting back into something. The sequel thing is interesting because there's a lot of comfort in the familiarity of it, but then there's also the challenge of reinventing it for yourself as well as for the audience. You can't just do the same thing again. But, you know, we once you start thinking in terms of Bruce Wayne's story, you want to see where that goes.
And at the same time, I don't know how you do all this, but you're producing with Emma Superman, the reinvention of that Zack Snyder is going to direct, and that's for December of 2012. Mm-hmm. So they've got the pressure on with all the dates and things, and they just announced today Henry Cavill as Superman. Yeah. So it's good. That's.
I mean, what I'm doing on that is I've hired a great director to take it on. It's sort of more his problem than mine, hopefully. I'm going to be very busy, but no, I think I'm super excited to sit down and watch Zack's movie when it's done, and I think Henry's going to be amazing.
All this big scale stuff, do you just sometimes want to sit down and do a romantic comedy with Jennifer Aniston sometimes?
Really? No, Romantic comedy is not really my thing. I don't know. I mean, I used to, you know, I was brought into the studio, followed very much by Steven Soderbergh, who is an incredibly versatile filmmaker and takes great pride in being able to spin around and do different things. And I used to sort of aspire to that somewhere in the back of my mind, and I think I've kind of given up on that. I think for me, what's fun is to just pursue the movie you want to go see the most. And I think for me, there's a certain amount of range to that, but I'm not anticipating, you know, doing a musical or a talking dog movie. Even though those things, you know, they have their worth, and you know, I'll sit there and happily watch them. But there's a difference between the films you say, okay, I'd like to go see that, or the film you want to invest a couple of years of your life directing, particularly directing.
Please welcome Leonardo DiCaprio.
There are certain artists that come once in a generation, and the defining characteristics of any master of any art form is a deep-seated, unshakable belief in their vision and their abilities. The surety with which Christopher Nolan crafts his films and the attention he pays to each detail certainly speaks to that unwavering confidence. But it is only until the final analysis, when the last frame has been locked and the sound effect has been mixed and the true scope of the film is in front of you, that his vision is finally revealed. And that vision is always breathtaking for all of us. Now, there were a million moving parts to Inception, and I don't think any of us could have fully realized what the sum of those parts was going to be except for Chris. And that is a testament to his clarity in his vision. But that clarity is not unique to Inception. It has been a hallmark of all of his films, from Memento to Insomnia, to Prestige, to Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight. Each of his works is indelibly marked as a Christopher Nolan film. And if you look at all of those films as a whole, they reveal an even grander vision. A continuing, lifelong exploration of consciousness and perception. An ongoing flirtation with the point at which magic and reality intersect. Though his films are marked by huge scope and technical wizardry, he is ultimately a filmmaker exploring the frailty of the human condition. Chris imbues even the most surreal, mind-bending world with a tactile authenticity that is unparalleled. But the precision of these physical calculations would fall flat if they were not matched by his desire for emotional authenticity. No matter how large his canvas is, there is always a beating heart in all of his films that is intimate, relatable, and honest to audience members. When his first film, The Following, premiered at the San Francisco Film Festival, the world took notice of an ambitious young filmmaker looking to challenge the notion of what film narrative could be. In the time since, he's gone much, much further. He no longer simply challenges our ideas about film. He has helped define them. And in doing so, he has also defined himself as a genius. Chris, it is with great pleasure that I present to you this well-deserved honor. No one director of our generation can better embody the title, Modern Master.
You heard plenty from me tonight, so I can be brief. I'd just say that, well, thank you to the San Francisco International Film Festival. It's great being back here, and just an incredible, incredible honor. Going through the films, talking to Pete, and thank you, Pete, for a really great question. It was a real pleasure. Looking over the years at the things, you know, that we've done, I'm struck by how many people I've depended on to make this happen. You know, I just spoke about Leo, and I owe him an incredible debt for his work on Inception. There are many actors that I've worked with, some of whom we've talked about, in great depth, others of whom have gone unmentioned. But I've been extremely dependent on the quality of my casts and my crew. There are many other people I also depend on. Some of whom I've mentioned tonight, some I haven't, but I'd like to just say to Dan, Michael, Jordan, and my brother Jonah, thank you very much for all the help you've given me in making these things possible. And last but certainly not least, I have to thank my producer and wife, Emma, and promise that I won't let this tension